Hey mamas, and welcome to today's homeschool update. It's going to be a very interesting one because we are making a lot of changes to our homeschool. So I'm going to be sharing that with you, as well as some books that we're loving and some resources that I recently picked up. So first, let me start with books. This is our new chapter book read aloud, and we do this during lunchtime. It's The Secret Zoo, Riddles and Danger, and it's written by Brian Chick. We read the first two books, I think, last school year going into the summertime. And we did like them a lot, but I put them down in order to pick up Harry Potter, which we absolutely love. We read 3 of the books out of the 8. And we recently decided, hey, let's pick up the 3rd book of this series because we really did enjoy those first 2 books. The next couple of books that I got were from the library, and I decided to choose some off of these lists that the library provided. Out of that, we actually found some fun books that we really enjoyed. And the first one, which is a classic one, and I'm sure you've heard of it or read it or have it in your library, and that's The Day the Crayons Quit. Hilarious book. It was so much fun to read. And basically there's this kid, Duncan, who wants to go into his box of crayons to draw something, and I can't remember if it was for class or something like that. And the crayons, all of them wrote different letters to him with, having grief about the ways that he has used them. And one of them was hilarious. It talked about being stripped of their clothing, which the kids do this all the time and it drives me nuts. So I'll read this to you. It says, "Hey Duncan, it's me, Peachy Crayon. Why did you peel off my paper wrapping? Now I'm naked and too embarrassed to leave the crayon box. I don't even have any underwear. How would you like to go to school naked? I need some clothes. Help! Your naked friend, Peach Crayon." The next one is Llama Destroys the World. Oh my gosh, it was hilarious. This is by Jonathan Stutzman, illustrated by Heather Fox. And the other book was by Drew DeWalt, illustrated by Oliver Jeffers. Forgot to mention that. Anyway, Llama Destroys the World is about a llama who decides to make these different mistakes over the course of a week that leads to the demise of the entire world. So it goes through the days of the week. And I'll just give you a snippet of this. On Friday, llama will destroy the world. And all the way through, the llama just says, "I am llama." And he says that when he wants something. And so this first day on Monday, and we would use funny voices like Monday. On Monday, llama found cake, piles of cake, more cake than any llama should ever eat. "That," says llama. Tuesday is when he puts on his dancing pants. And what was the first one? He doesn't fit into the pants because he ate all that cake. And it says, "The pants did not fit. He was still full of cake, but he never danced without his dancing pants. They made his butt look groovy." That one was one that we honestly read a number of times. I didn't keep track of how many times we read it. Another one that was really fun to read is called Subway, and it's written by Anastasia Suen, illustrated by Karen Katz. We have a lot of cute little books for toddler age, written by Karen Katz, illustrated by Karen Katz. So when I saw that she was the illustrator of this book, I just had to pick it up because I was so curious. So this is a rhyming book, and it's very rhythmic, and the kids honestly will do some chanting of each of the rhymes. So this first page says, "We go down to go uptown, down, down, down in the subway." It's kind of got a fun groove to it. This next one is a gorgeous book, a beautiful story. I highly recommend it, and it's called What Do You Do with an Idea? It's by Kobe Yamada, illustrated by May Bessam. It goes through this story of a child who has an idea, but they're not sure what to do with it, and they at first try to ignore it. They try to put it away, but it kind of keeps coming back up. And so they decide to nurture the idea, and they become friends with their idea. Then what eventually happens is that the child shows the idea to other people, and then they get down about it because other people were saying that they don't like the idea. It's too weird, it's too crazy. But then they realized, what do they know about this idea? And so they continue to nurture the idea. And eventually what they realize is that it can change the world. So beautifully illustrated, such a wonderful story with a great message. Now onto some resources that I recently picked up. The first is a couple of things from Safari Ltd. They're all based on the theme of life cycles. So we're kind of exploring this idea of like reintroducing unit studies. So I got the life cycle of a frog, the life cycle of a bean plant, the life cycle of a bee, the life cycle of a monarch butterfly. I haven't decided fully what this is gonna look like, but I wanted to start us off on something that I know the kids would be excited about. So they love bugs, they love plants, they love frogs, all kinds of different small creatures. And so I really love these little figurines from Safari Ltd because they're very realistic and they're huge. Then it has the different stages of the butterfly. And what I do with this is I cut up a number of cards. So these are Montessori 2-part cards, and the child will just match them up. So we have the larva, and so they match that up. And then they have this sheet that has the different labels of each of them going in the life cycle, the circle. And so they have to label the pupa, the adult, etc. And they use these little figurines to kind of match them up. And honestly, this is something that is most suitable for my kindergartner and my preschooler. So I have some resources that I'm also using with my second graders. So I have these like informational cards that I have yet to print out. I have to print that out, that she could use to make a little booklet for herself so that she can learn some information about the ladybugs and still use these little fun figurine manipulatives. I do want to mention too that there are so many free resources that I'm coming across, especially for Montessori, that I am going to be making so much use out of. So like I said, I have these little matching cards. These are all free. I will link them below if you're interested. And then I have these that have my children trace out the actual words. And so I'm gonna be using that again with my kindergartner primarily. And then we have this page, which is labeling the different parts of the ladybug. So this will be something good for my kindergartner and second grader. Then this was a fun activity for my son to do. It's the do-a-dot like L and ladybug activity sheet. These next couple of resources are going to give you a little sneak peek of some of the changes that I'm making. So the first one is I acquired these composition books from Amazon. They come in a bunch of different colors, and what we're going to do with these books is create interactive notebooks, which I think is going to go over well specifically for my oldest daughter. One of them is going to be dedicated to just like a writing journal, and I don't know how I'm gonna go about this. Like I might let her and my middle daughter just kind of write every day, you know, having a specific time set that we're all gonna just do some writing. So moving on from that, the other resource that I picked up were these two books, okay? So these are for middle schoolers. It's everything you need to ace science in one big fat notebook. And they're kind of cool. Actually, they're really cool. I wish I had something like this when I was growing up. But basically, it's like a notebook style, and the author is somebody who I guess was a really good note taker. So it says, notes borrowed from the smartest kid in class, double checked by an award-winning teacher. They're both broken up into units, so it feels very much like a curriculum, and that's how we're going to treat it. We're going to have these books serve as spines for science and world history. They also have American history, so I'm looking to pick that up as well. The other resource that I picked up, which again reflects some of the changes that we're making, are these yellow chips. What am I going to do with these chips, you might ask? Well, I am designing a reward system. Against every belief that I previously had, I decided that we are going to learn how to be diligent with our work by doing a reward system. I was so much against it in the beginning because I wanted my kids to develop intrinsic motivation, right? So if you have external motivation, like something like this, it's sometimes a little bit more challenging for a child to develop that intrinsic motivation. At least that's what I thought. And so I just feel like in the real world, when you do good work, you are rewarded. So my thought process is I'm gonna have different categories for them to earn different chips. So for instance, if they diligently do their work for like within a certain time frame, they get a chip and they put it in a jar. And I got some jars a while ago from the dollar store that I thought I was going to use for fall activities, wound up not doing this. So I'm going to use it for this. And essentially I'm going to mark off the jars so the kids will have different levels of prizes that they can get. The first one will be like, I don't know, like a lollipop or an eraser or something like that. And then they move up the levels, and the top level is going to be like, go shopping with mommy. We have a Five Below near us, so that works really well, and they can pick up something that they'd really like. So it also teaches them like, am I going to budget my money so that I can get something better, or am I going to use it all up at once? All right, so on to this past month of March. As many of you know, I made a post in my community tab about us getting COVID, and it was horrible. Thankfully, nobody was hospitalized. Praise God. Like, everybody was okay. Clearly, that threw us off our game for homeschooling. So I feel like, I kind of was forced to rest, and I needed that. So I almost, in a weird way, am thankful for how things happened, because it really made me understand how important resting is. Other things that made this month a little bit challenging, in particular, my son Jesse, who again is 2.5 years old, he changed his sleeping pattern. So he used to sleep in till like 9 o'clock, sometimes 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was bliss because I was able to use a good chunk of time in the morning to do some work tasks. But most recently, he's been waking up earlier and earlier and earlier. So typically I was getting up between 6 and 6:30, and I had my devotional time, and I had some time to do some major work tasks that I wanted to complete before I started my day with the kids. And because he's waking up earlier and earlier, I'm not really able to get much done anymore. So I felt like I was at a loss for a while, and I was getting burnt out and stressed. I had to step away from some things to really rethink how things are going, like how do I need to adjust, and how do I need to change my attitude so that my kids are getting the best of me. What also came out of that was a shift in my perspective about how we do homeschool, and also about how things don't need to be perfect all the time. This is something that I constantly struggle with. I know I've mentioned it before, and I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but honestly, like I felt like our binder time, our morning time, and our morning routines had to look a certain way so that we were productive and we were getting things done at the certain time that we need to get them done. It was paralyzing when our plans would change. And so I'll just give you an example. Our morning binder time this past month was like practically non-existent. And the reason for that is because I wanted to make sure that the kids were dressed and ready, and we did our morning chores before doing morning binder time. And I wasn't feeding myself on time. The kids were kind of like all over the place, and I had to monitor them, and it was just so chaotic, and we never got to do it because I was forcing it to be a certain way. Most recently, like within the past couple of days, I have completely let that go. And organically, we started to pick it up again. The different obstacles that I have bumped into over the course of this past month has really challenged me to rethink our homeschool. And I had to revisit our mission, our goals, our vision. One of our goals before was for the kids to grow in their independence and take charge of their own learning, and also develop a good work ethic, which is fantastic. It's not a bad thing, but I actually simplified that a little bit more by just simply saying, we want to learn how to learn. And what that means for us is to be constantly curious about things and not be afraid of taking risks when it comes to exploring things. It also means that we learn how to do research for ourselves and go to the library, learn about the Dewey Decimal System, be able to understand how keywords work and things like that. I'm also hoping that they can learn how to create their own goals and track their progress. Right now, I'm excited about the prospect of this, but I'm still kind of in the process of saying to myself and writing down, like, what does this specifically mean for us? What does it look like? The other thing that I want us to do, and this is kind of like an open-ended goal, is to read and write a lot, because that is very much related to learning how to learn. So those two goals, I feel like, really go hand in hand with each other. Recently, what I've realized about myself is that I have been focusing way too much on our curriculum, and that has really sucked the joy out of homeschooling. My initial dream for our homeschool was that we could be out, and that we can be exploring the world around us and going on trips to different places and exploring nature, even though I am very much not an outdoorsy kind of person. But that we would just we would really use the world as our resource, and we haven't been doing that. I was very much encouraged by my cousin who is also a homeschool mom, and she said, sometimes there are seasons like that where you just focus on the curriculum and nothing else, and that's all you do. We're in that dry season right now, and we're just now kind of coming out of it, because I have this renewed idea of how, our future homeschooling is going to go. Another aspect of my perspective that has changed is using digital resources for learning. So just like we use curriculum as a resource for learning, we can tap into some apps and things like that for learning as well. I want to provide some good digital resources for my kids to practice not only reading and doing math, but also coding and, exploring different parts of the world and biomes and all kinds of different things that they really can have at their fingertips these days. All right, mamas, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful for you. Take care, be blessed, and I'll see you in the next one.